You ever felt that pounding in your chest before the big presentation and it just goes downhill from there? Or the prospect was good to go, they were influenced, they were persuaded, they got spooked with fear, and you haven't heard from them since? Both scenarios have this fear. We're going to talk about how to turn this fear into excitement. Both for you, could be the fear of public speaking, and for your prospect, that fear of making the wrong decision. We're going to cover both. Let's do it.
Maximize your influence. Kurt Mortensen is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence.
Thanks for being here. Kurt Mortensen here, podcast 559 for Maximize Your Influence. We can be found at iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Please tell your family, friends, and enemies about the podcast. And, of course, all the archives, your free Persuasion IQ assessment, all the links for the podcast can be found at MaximizeYourInfluence.com under podcast 559. That's also the same place to subscribe to the weekly email, and that's where the specials and freebies can be found every week. So let's dive into the persuasion blunder of the week. Don't! So we were in a city we didn't know very well, and we were looking for something to eat. There was a crispy chicken Korean place. Went through the drive-thru. We ordered our sandwiches, and I got the combo, some fries and a drink. Not thinking much of it. Went through the drive-thru, and they handed me my drink in a Jimmy John's Subway cup. And I'm thinking, okay, what just happened here? I went to your restaurant, and I'm getting a cup from another restaurant. And that just caused so many questions. Did he give me his soda by mistake? Were these cups overstocked and he bought them? Is Jimmy John's down the street and they're friends and they loaned them cups? Is it the same company? I even looked it up. No, they're not the same company, but a Jimmy John's cup. All these questions, credibility questions, what's going on? Why would this happen? And after being persuaded, after buying, now I have more questions about the service, about what's going on. Again, where's this cup coming from? Did they reuse it? I didn't know. So if you're going to do something like that, like it's last resort, you're going to have to inoculate, pre-solve all those questions and objections that I have. Say, look, this is why I'm giving you this cup. This is what's happening. There's some extras. We ran out. Our shipment's not coming tomorrow. My good friend up the street loaned us these. Wanted to make sure we could take care of you in the best way possible. Instead of letting me lingering with all these questions and concerns and what ifs, that's not the best thing to do for your customers. So if there is a situation like that where you have to do something interesting, unique, strange, or out of the ordinary, you probably should inoculate and pre-solve those questions and objections before they happen. Because if they do happen, your prospects are thinking things much worse than actually is happening. Well, like me, for example, did he really give me his drink? Probably not, but that's one of the first things I thought of because it made no sense. So when those things happen to you, make sure you inoculate, pre-solve that objection or question before it happens. Make sure you're not planting the seed and giving them an objection, but if you know it's coming up, you want to pre-solve it. Go to the archives, look up inoculation, and see more tools in that arena. And that is our persuasion blunder of the week. And moving right along, we're going to go to our geeky Scarly article about performance anxiety. Not what you're thinking, but different ways to overcome your fear of being judged. This comes from themindsjournal.com, the journal of PLOS1, Frontiers in Psychology, and Theo Harrison. So this performance anxiety is about stage fright, feeling nervous, fear, apprehension before a performance. It could be theater, that could be music, it could be giving a speech, that big negotiation, that big interview, or even taking an exam. And when you feel that apprehension and that stress, what the study found is that negatively affects the performer's mental and emotional states and impairs their ability to maintain focus and execute learned skills. And we've all had that anxiety, that fear. It increases with bigger crowds, unfamiliar situations, not feeling in control, last-minute changes, new situations, or just the unknown. What's going to happen? What's going on? Are they going to say yes? Are they going to heckle me? Can increase that anxiety. So researchers explain, when you're looking at anxiety, this is what people experience in anticipation of and or during important tasks, resulting in impaired performance. So it could be before or during the task. And again, that negatively affects our cognitions. It hurts our focus, our attention, increases our negative thoughts, and does hurt our actual performance. Now, where does this come from? It could be lack of preparation, fear of failure, self-doubt, history of negative experiences, focusing on the wrong things. These could be the triggers, and we're going to focus on this. Is how do we take these butterflies, these nerves, this anxiety, and get those butterflies to fly in formation? It's the first thing I teach in persuasive presentation is getting those butterflies to fly in formation. How do we do this? Now, anyone can experience this form of anxiety at any time. Sometimes it doesn't matter how well you're prepared for that presentation, for that exam, for that game. We get some nerves, we get a little panicked, a little apprehensive beforehand. What do we do in this situation so it doesn't impair our ability to persuade and influence? Our minds get filled with this fear and this self-doubt, and ultimately we sabotage ourselves, and that anxiety, those nerves, that fear, it's a downward spiral towards failure. And that's what the frontiers in psychology found, that anxiety in multiple studies has been associated with diminished performance across the board. And that around 2% of the population is affected by this debilitating performance anxiety to where they just can't even ever get themselves to do a presentation, go out on the field, go to the job interview. They just can't deal with it. So bottom line, when we feel these nerves, this tension, this anxiety, this fear, it hurts our performance, it pulls us down. What can we do in this situation? Well, let's start off with listener email.
Oh, boy!
And again, email me at Kurt, K-U-R-T, at MaximizeYourInfluence.com. I use anything on the podcast, from humor to suggestion, to content of the week, to geeky article, to a suggestion. You get for free, InfluenceUniversity.com. And do check that out for the special on the lifetime membership at InfluenceUniversity.com/special. All right, there's your housekeeping. This is Heather from Houston. That's in the United States. This is Kurt. I've been persuading with power and going through the perfect persuasive presentation. And you talked about getting those butterflies to fly in formation. How can I do that in my own presentations? And even more important, how can I get my prospects' fear to fly in formation? Is this a tool I can use with my prospects? Now, first of all, for those that are in other countries, other cultures, butterflies flying in formation or having butterflies in your stomach, that's unique to English speaking, and not even all English speakers understand what that is. That's very hard to translate. I've noticed in countries in Asia, and translating that in Arabic, that can be a challenge, but that's what we're going to focus on. How do we do this for you personally to get those butterflies to fly in formation, and then your prospect to get those nerves, that fear under control? And bottom line here is turn that fear into excitement. So the first thing we need to do is take a look at what fear, anxiety, those nerves, what do they do to the body? Because your body and your mind undergo physiological and psychological changes triggered by this stress. Now, most of these reactions come from the body's amygdala. We've talked a lot about that part of the brain. It's kind of a survival response. So what's happening in the body? So your heart starts pumping faster to get oxygen to those muscles, because it's a perceived threat. Some people start to sweat, try to cool themselves down, get those clammy hands. You might see a little trembling, some shaking. That's from the adrenaline that's causing tension. You might even hear it in the shakiness in their voice. But then there's the rapid breathing, hyperventilation, because your body's needing more oxygen and they're taking those short, shallow breaths, and that makes you feel a little lightheaded. Now, in your brain, anxiety increases, worry increases. You start to hyper-focus on the threats in the room. Oh, they made a face. Oh, they look mean. Oh, they're going to make me look dumb. And that probably was not their intent, but you see that in their face. And when all this is happening, you get memory blanks. It's harder to recall the prepared material. and you forget the things that you rehearsed. So now you know what's happening in the body. And let's back up a little bit and not sugarcoat this. Fear. I mean, how much does fear cost you in your life? And what fears are holding you back? So here's the reality check. Talk to any psychologist. They learned early on in college that every baby in the world is only born with two fears. I'm talking a brand new baby. The fear of falling. If they feel like they're falling, that'll make them cry. And the fear of loud noises will upset them. At this point, they don't care about the fear of public speaking because they're public speaking all night long. A spider could go across their crib. They're not going to care. They only have two fears. Fear of falling, fear of loud noises. The only fears you were born with, ding, 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 this should open your mind. That means all the fun little fears that are holding you back. Fear of public speaking, the fear of criticism, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection. You've learned those so you can unlearn those. You were not born with social anxiety. You were not born with the fear of public speaking. Those were learned. So the goal here is to shift this fear, these nerves, this anxiety to excitement. Like what? Basically, fear and excitement secrete the same chemicals in your body. Your body does not know the difference between fear and excitement. Your brain does. I'm talking about your body. So when I talk about getting your butterflies to fly in formation, you're turning that fear, those nerves, into excitement. Because that rush of adrenaline and cortisol prepares to defend ourselves, that fear, but those are also the chemicals when we feel excited about something, our future, what we're going to accomplish. That's the key. You get to choose. You want to choose fear or excitement. Because that adrenaline's the same. Whether you're scared or excited, same chemical. Elevated heart rate, that happens whether it's fear or excitement. The difference here's the key, is not how your body reacts, how your mind interprets it. So you feel the same physically, but emotionally and mentally it's a little different. They're actually polar opposites. Fear can be debilitating, a waste of time sometimes, stressful, but excitement's fun, it's enjoyable, and we love that feeling. So how do you interpret what's happening to you? Take public speaking. Have you decided that it's going to be fun or it's going to be stressful? Now, anxiety and nerves and fear, that's a good thing. That's why we've survived over the years. There's healthy anxiety. There's healthy fear. There's also unhealthy anxiety, unhealthy fear that can pull you down. So as humans, we can have the ability to change our responses, change the way we think, and shift that fear, those nerves, into excitement. So recent research from Dr. Marsden at Beacon College says, if we reappraise anxiety as excitement, we will perform better no matter the task. It's how we feel about ourselves in those situations that makes a difference. How we frame that situation. Is it life or death? Or is it a lot of fun? Or it's really not going to matter in a few years, can change the way you think. So I want to focus on the solutions for you personally, and then let's answer the email and talk about prospects. How do you turn your prospects' fear into excitement? So first, let's talk about you. You have that big presentation, a big interview, the big negotiation, the big fill in the blank. How can you turn that fear into excitement? Well, the first thing you need to do is reframe it. Reframe the racing heart as signs of excitement rather than signs of fear. My heart's racing because I'm excited to give this presentation, to share my ideas versus I'm scared to death, I'm terrified, I'm going to blow it. And then I always recommend for presenters, as an executive speech coach, to focus on the message, not the fear. When you really believe in your message, you want to do a great job, you want the audience to improve, that makes all the difference in the world. If you're passionate about what you're talking about, the fear erodes away and you get excited about it. Find the passion, focus on the message, and then use visualization. See, the opposite of good vision is worry. Worry is negative goal setting. Worry about all the negative things that could happen. You're planting the seed, and they probably will happen. Visualization is you're excited about the future, what's going to happen, what you're doing. You're visualizing them smiling, laughing, saying yes, nodding their heads up and down because they agree with you. That's what you're looking for. If you're stuck on worry, it's because your vision's not strong enough. Did you catch that? If you're always worrying about things, it's because you can't see yourself doing it. You're not visualizing it. And let's shift our breathing. When you're feeling fear, it's short, shallow breaths. You're collecting oxygen, but it makes you lightheaded. You're not thinking clearly. Switch that to deep breathing. Calms the nervous system. It reduces your fear, gets oxygen to your brain. It's key to switch up your breathing. Be aware of your breathing. Then there's power poses. If you've ever studied Dr. Cuddy's work, it's a little controversial, but she does the Wonder Woman with her hands on her hips, or your hands in the air in the victory pose, says it releases chemicals, helps you out. People swear by that. If it works, do it. And the other thing I do is embrace your audience. They're allies. They're rooting for you. Your audience is paying with their time or their money. They're not hoping you do a horrible job, for the most part. Maybe your competitor is. But they want you to do a great presentation. They are rooting for you. They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to be bored. They want a great presentation. Channel that to give a great presentation. And then, of course, be prepared. The more you're prepared, that fear erodes away, gives you confidence, and it helps build excitement for your presentation. When you're prepared, the fear erodes away. Now, let's flip that up. When you're in influence, you're in sales, how can you turn a prospect's fear into excitement? Because your prospect could feel the fear of change, fear of financial risk, fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. How do you turn that into excitement? Now, the first thing to do is when they're feeling fears, acknowledge them, validate those fears. You can show empathy. I understand you're worried about the cost. Most of our clients felt the same way. The worst thing you do is like, well, you shouldn't be scared. You shouldn't be afraid of flying. Like, well, I am. You could say, I get it. I'd be scared too. Or most clients were scared at this point. Let me tell you what we found out. You can say, I agree. I understand. Others have felt that way, depending on your presentation. And this is another opportunity to reframe the risk as opportunity. Shift that perspective by focusing on the solution. It's solving their problem. They're going to be happier, wealthier, healthier, have more time, whatever it is, paint that picture. Because that's the goal. Take that worry, take that fear, just like I talked about personally, and building that vision of the future. Get them to move away from that fear to that worry, to the vision, to the solution. And this is also a good time to crank up the social validation, showing stories, testimonials, others who were in the same situation, had the same fear, had the same concerns, and they improved their profits by 20% in 6 months. Could be very beneficial in this situation. Maybe even the situation you could pull out, dust off the old classic Ben Franklin close, where you list all the pros of doing it and all the cons of not doing it. Remember, the key here is that you help with the pros, let them do the cons. And it's amazing. It's like 10-2. And like, oh, well, that makes it easy. And one that works really well in this situation too, some type of a trial or a guarantee. So you're not saying, hey, let's do it forever, commit forever. Let's test it out. Let's try it out. Let's taste it, touch it, feel it. Let's do it, whatever we need to do to get them to try it out. Try it out for 30 days. You're going to find out this and this and this. And that's the key. The more you get them involved in the presentation and the activity and the close, you can give a demo or have them do the demo. Questions back and forth, brainstorming, what's the solution here? And shift the focus from the fear to excitement, to being more creative. It's different parts of the brain. Let's walk through how this software is going to make you more money, save you time. Let's look at it together. The key here, of course, is to be empathetic with their fears, and then you could transform their apprehension, their nerves, their fear into enthusiasm, into excitement, and they can see themselves doing it. They can see themselves doing the solution. And remember the importance here. If they can't see themselves doing it mentally, it's not going to happen physically. And of course, the more they trust you, the more you have rapport, the easier this becomes. So that's a wrap. Podcast 559. Again, we're still offering the lifetime membership 90% off on the influenceuniversity.com/special. Check that out. But those that are giving presentations, let me do a little something special. Those are in the emails. Those are getting the weekly freebies. Let me give you something. I'm an executive speech coach, so let me prove my worth. There'll be a link on there to a form to upload an audio or video of your presentation, and I will analyze it. I'll tell you about your strengths. I'll tell you about your weakness. I'll tell you about your your charisma. I'll tell you about your connection. I'll tell you about your close. So I'll ask you a few questions about, is this a close? Is this for motivation? Is this for a seminar? Is this for one-on-one? Is this for a group? I'll have a few questions there. There'll be a link to my Dropbox to upload the video, and let me give you feedback. Because you're too close to it. Because anybody can present, but are you persuasive? Anybody can communicate, but do you have the charisma? So check that out on podcast 559 at maximizeyourinfluence.com or your email. But take something that you learned today. Let's get those butterflies to fly in formation. Let's turn that fear into excitement. That'll change the game for you. That'll give your presentation more charisma. You'll be more influential. But again, do it, make it happen, and go out and persuade with power.